The storm hung over the ocean like a shroud, the night sky fractured by intermittent forks of lightning. Rain lashed against the rust-streaked hull of the Abyssal Horizon as it heaved against the relentless swell. Captain Rourke stood in the wheelhouse, hands gripping the console, his salt and pepper beard slick with seawater. The vessel wasn't built for comfort, but it had been his home for decades, and he trusted it to weather storms like this one. "Last net, Captain?" crackled the intercom, Logan's voice thin against the ambient roar of the sea. Rourke glanced at the radar, noting the erratic movement of their position marker. "Aye, bring it in slow. No rush." Below deck, the crew worked in a rhythm honed by years of repetition. Logan manned the winch, his fingers gloved but still numbed from the cold. Jared and Theo, the deckhands, braced against the rail, ready to guide the heavy net aboard. Anna lingered near the aft, her notebook tucked into her jacket. She wasn't here for the fish. Her focus was the biome of the deep sea, the strange creatures dredged up with each haul. A stormy night like this promised little in the way of samples, but she watched with scientific anticipation nonetheless. The winch groaned as the net surfaced, a tangled silhouette rising through the churning waves. Jared squinted, leaning over the rail. "What the hell is that?" he muttered, his voice almost lost in the wind. The net broke the surface, water cascading from its glistening contents. The crew's banter and complaints ceased. Even the storm seemed to hush as all eyes fixed on the thing writhing within the nylon mesh. It wasn't a fish, or at least not one anyone aboard had ever seen. Its body was long and vaguely humanoid, its translucent skin shimmering faintly in the dim deck lights. Through the taut flesh, musculature, and a lattice of glowing veins were clearly visible, pulsing in hues of green and blue. Long, jointed appendages extended from its head and arms, each tipped with an orb of light that blinked rhythmically like a lighthouse beacon in miniature. "Holy," Logan whispered, stepping back instinctively. "What is that?" Anna edged forward, her curiosity overpowering her caution. "Lower it gently," she instructed, her voice trembling with awe. "We can't damage it." Jared and Theo exchanged uneasy glances, but did as they were told, guiding the net onto the deck. Water pooled around their boots as the creature settled in a twisted heap, its limbs occasionally twitching. Its head lolled to one side, milky eyes rolling open and shut in a disturbingly human-like manner. "It's alive," Anna breathed, crouching beside it. The glow from its lures bathed her face in an eerie light, illuminating every raindrop clinging to her skin. She reached out tentatively, her gloved fingers hovering near its flesh. "Don't touch it," Captain Rourke barked, his voice cutting through the growing tension as he descended from the wheelhouse. He stopped short at the sight of the thing sprawled on his deck. His weathered face darkened. "That's not something we should be messing with." Anna glanced up, frustrated. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime discovery. We can't just—" Before she could finish, the creature's body convulsed. A guttural wet sound escaped its throat, followed by a sudden resonant vibration. It wasn't a scream, exactly, but it reverberated through the air like a deep bass note, bypassing the ears and settling in the chest. The crew froze as the sound grew, the vibration intensifying until it felt like the very air around them was alive with static. Jared dropped to his knees, clutching his head. "What's happening?" he gasped. His voice was muffled, distant, as if he were underwater. The deck seemed to tilt, not from the ocean's waves, but from a disorienting shift in reality itself. Anna blinked hard, her vision swimming with shapes that shouldn't have been there. A shadow twisted in the corner of her eye, gone when she turned her head. Logan staggered, gripping the rail for balance, his knuckles white. "I saw something," Theo muttered, his eyes darting around wildly. On the deck, something moved. "It's the light," Anna said, though her voice lacked conviction. She shook her head as if to clear it, but the sensation persisted. Her peripheral vision swarmed with indistinct movement, vague gelatinous forms slipping in and out of sight. The creature pulsed again, its glowing lures flaring brighter. Jared whimpered and crawled backward, his breathing ragged. "It's in my head," he whispered, tears streaking his face. "I can hear it." Captain Rourke stomped forward, his boots splashing through the rain-soaked deck. He pulled a tarp from the supply locker and threw it over the creature, muting its glow. The vibrations lessened, though they didn't stop entirely. "Get it off my deck," he ordered, his tone brooking no argument. "Put it in the freezer. Seal the damn thing." "Freezer?" Anna protested, standing to block him. "We don't even know what it is. What if it's dangerous?" Rourke snapped. His voice softened slightly, though the urgency remained. "Look at them." He gestured toward Jared and Theo, both trembling as they leaned against the rail. "Something's wrong, Anna. We don't need to study it. We need to survive it." The hesitation in her eyes evaporated. "Fine," she said reluctantly, "but we need to be careful." Theo and Logan hauled the net toward the hatch, their movements stiff and mechanical. The creature remained still, but its lures continued to glow faintly, casting strange shadows against the walls as they lowered it into the freezer hold. As the hatch slammed shut, the storm picked up again, rain hammering the deck with renewed ferocity. Anna stood in silence, staring at the spot where the creature had been. Captain Rourke placed a firm hand on her shoulder. "Get some rest," he said gruffly. "We'll deal with this in the morning." But Anna didn't move. Somewhere below, faint vibrations still hummed through the ship, subtle but insistent. She couldn't shake the feeling that they hadn't caught the creature. It had let itself be caught. The storm had passed by dawn, leaving the ocean calm but the atmosphere aboard Abyssal Horizon tense and heavy. Sunlight glinted weakly through the salt-streaked portholes, but it did little to lift the crew's spirits. The events of the previous night had left everyone unnerved, though no one wanted to be the first to admit it. Captain Rourke was the first to break the uneasy silence, barking orders for the morning cleanup. "Logan, check the winch for damage. Theo, get the engine room squared away. Jared, sort through the last haul." His voice had its usual gruff authority, but it lacked conviction, as if he were trying to convince himself nothing was amiss. Anna, however, had other plans. After a sleepless night, she headed straight for the freezer. Her notebook was tucked under one arm, her other hand gripping a thermos of black coffee. The creature was all she could think about, its luminous lures, the vibrations, the strange way it seemed to burrow into their minds. She needed answers. The freezer was dark and humming with the mechanical whir of the cooling system. The air stung her lungs with its coldness as she approached the tarp-draped form of the creature. For a moment she hesitated, her breath misting in the icy air. Then she pulled back the tarp. The creature was still, its translucent skin frosted with a thin layer of ice crystals. Its lures dimmed and pulsed faintly, casting eerie patterns on the surrounding walls. Anna knelt, careful not to touch it, and began taking notes. She noticed details she had missed before. The fine, hair-like filaments sprouting from its body, twitching ever so slightly, as if alive. Beneath its skin, veins glowed faintly, seeming to shift and pulse in a rhythm that didn't align with any heartbeat she could imagine. She couldn't shake the feeling it was watching her. A sudden noise made her jump. The freezer door creaked open and Logan poked his head inside. "Anna," he said, his face pale. "You should come to the galley. Jared's acting weird." Anna hesitated, glancing back at the creature before standing. "Weird how?" Logan shrugged, his expression unsettled. He cut his hand earlier. Now he's sitting there, muttering to himself, and he won't let anyone near him. Her gut churned as she followed Logan to the galley. The air outside the freezer was thick with tension, as if the ship itself had become hostile. When they reached the galley, Anna found Jared sitting in a corner, his knees drawn to his chest. His hand was bandaged, but dark stains bled through the fabric. He was muttering under his breath, his eyes darting around as though he was seeing things no one else could. "Jared," Anna said softly, approaching him. "What's going on?" His head snapped up, his pupils blown wide. "You hear it too," he said, his voice hoarse. The hum. It's in the walls, in my head." Anna crouched down, keeping her distance. "What hum?" "Jared, I need you to focus. Let me see your hand." He snarled, baring his teeth like a cornered animal. "Stay back." His voice cracked and his whole body trembled. "It's under my skin, moving. Can't you see it?" Anna froze. For a brief, horrifying moment, she thought she could see it. A ripple beneath his forearm, like something wriggling just under the surface. She blinked and it was gone. Her rational mind told her it was impossible, but her instincts screamed otherwise. Logan stepped forward, his expression darkening. "He needs help. Maybe Rourke." "I'm fine," Jared shouted, slamming his hand against the wall. The metal panel vibrated under the force. He slumped back, clutching his arm. "I just need it to stop." Anna stood, exchanging a glance with Logan. "I'll talk to the captain," she said, though she wasn't sure what Rourke could do. She had no idea what was happening or how to stop it. The captain wasn't on the bridge. Anna found him in the engine room, standing over Theo, who was hunched over a panel, muttering to himself. The acrid smell of burnt circuits filled the air. "What's going on?" Anna asked, her voice tight. Rourke turned, his face lined with fatigue. "Theo says the engine's been acting up all morning, claims it's not running right because of vibrations." His voice was heavy with skepticism, but there was a flicker of unease in his eyes. "It's the creature," Theo mumbled, his back still to them. "It's in the pipes, in the ship. I hear it." Anna's heart sank. "It's not in the pipes, Theo. It's isolated in the freezer." Theo turned to face her, his eyes bloodshot. "You don't understand. It's not there. It's everywhere. It's in us." Before she could respond, the ship shuddered, a low groan echoing through its structure. Anna grabbed the railing for balance. Rourke swore under his breath. "What the hell was that?" Theo's expression twisted into a grin, his teeth bared in something more feral than joyful. "It's waking up." By evening, the crew had splintered into their own corners of the ship, the camaraderie that once defined them replaced by paranoia. Jared hadn't moved from his spot in the galley, his mutterings growing louder and more erratic. Logan kept pacing the deck, his eyes darting to the dark water, as though expecting something to emerge. Even Rourke seemed shaken, glancing at the radar as if he were searching for something unseen. Anna returned to the lab, desperate for answers. Under the microscope, samples she'd taken from the creature's filaments writhed unnaturally, their structures shifting and growing. It didn't behave like any biological material she had studied. It was as if the cells were aware, responding to her presence. Her own reflection in the microscope's lens seemed distorted, her eyes too bright, her skin too pale. She clenched her fists, trying to suppress the rising panic. Something was happening to all of them. She couldn't deny it anymore. The creature's vibrations weren't just noise, they were a signal, a call, and it was getting louder. Continuation of the story, coming soon.